Hello, everyone. Good morning, good evening, wherever you are, whatever your time zone. Welcome. This is Digital Transformation Talk, and I am your host, Kevin Crane. Welcome to the show. We're starting from scratch here today. I'm a brand new host. This is a brand new show, and you're a brand new audience, but that's okay. Don't worry. Take a deep breath. Just be yourself. Don't be nervous. I'm sure you're all going to be a great audience. Well, what about this show, Digital Transformation Talk? Well, the title says it all. We will talk about and explore all aspects of digital transformation each week on this show. What is it? Why is it important? And most importantly, how can we adopt technologies and techniques and tools that really make a difference in the way that matters to organizations today, using digital transformation to really move the needle when it comes to organizational performance, innovation, and meeting the needs and expectations of customers and stakeholders and even society today. And best of all, no presentations, no PowerPoint, just talk with some of today's best thought leaders on topics that lead the discussion when it comes to digital transformation. So, to that end, we have a great lineup of topics coming to you in the coming weeks. Today, we'll be talking about building sustainability through digital transformation with a great panel of guests. My questions are: how does digital transformation play and contribute to meeting ESG, environmental, social, and governance objectives? Why should sustainability and ESG be a part of our digital transformation strategy? We'll find out today. But before I introduce our guests and our news item today, I want to say that we want to hear from you too. We'd like to encourage you and to all of you attending to participate. After all, we're a big community of practitioners and experts. So please join in with your comments in the chat section. And if you have a question along the way for our guests, please enter them into the Q&A feature. We will be working to get them into the flow of the show and indeed maybe have a few minutes at the end for questions. So with all of that said, I would like to introduce our guests today, starting with Rafael Narazi, Chief Technology Officer at CF Partners. Oh, someone is joining. Hello there. Please mute yourself. Rafael is with us. Mudasar Ulhag is with us, Chief Information Officer at Waverton Investment Management Limited, and Christian Kuku, an internationally known strategic advisor in IT and cybersecurity. Gentlemen, are you all with me here today? Rafael, Mudasar, and Christian, welcome aboard.
Thanks for having us.
Hello, good day to all of you.
Hello. All right, we're all connected. Rafael, where are you calling in from?
I'm calling from London, so my time zone is 4 o'clock the afternoon. Yeah, very beautiful day. I mean, it's very rare in London sometimes. Most of the time it's raining, cold. Very good so far. Thank you for having me.
It looks great there. I wish I was there with you, Rafael. And Mudasar, where are you calling in from?
I'm also from London. I'm just at the outskirts of the West End, just near Regent Street. So a very nice day today, and a pleasant surprise in terms of the weather, I must say.
Nice.
So, nice to be here.
Nice, enjoy. And Christian, where are you calling in from?
Hi, Kevin. Calling from Bucharest, Romania. It's getting dark outside. I think across Europe we're feeling a bit chillier than we did a few weeks back. But
Nice.
This is winter. It's February.
Nice. Well, I'm here in Portland, Oregon, west coast of the United States. Still early morning here for me. So we're covering the globe here today. It's great to have you all with us today. Thank you for being part of this debut of Digital Transformation Talk. All right, let's get into it. I would like to bring to our attention a news article today to start our discussion. And it is an article from Digital Transformation People called "The Link Between ESG and Your Digital Transformation Strategy." Hunter in the background today is posting that link in the comments, so please feel free to take a look at that as we talk. The article is written by Kelly Wilkes, and it talks about this link between sustainability and digital transformation, and how a digital-driven approach to ESG can help companies achieve its sustainability goals. In it mentions some research from McKinsey, and I'd like to quote it really quick to get us started. And it says companies with a comprehensive ESG plan containing measurable targets for materially reducing carbon emissions while substantially increasing diversity and inclusion not only benefit from improved morale and higher NPS scores, but also tend to see faster growth, 10 to 20% higher valuation, and 5 to 10% lower.
Cara, precisa você fique quieto, filho.
Goodness, please, Mark, please mute your mic if there is noise about. Now, to me, that's a lot to unpack. It mixes carbon emissions with brand perception, maybe two different sides to the same coin. I don't know, gentlemen, you tell me, what's your take on this? How should we regard the link between sustainability and digital transformation?
I think from my perspective as a company, we set out goals to really deliver a far more efficient objective as far as our digital transformation is concerned. And alongside that, we've also looked at how we can operationally become a net zero company by 2030. So I think setting those objectives has clearly been probably an important aspect. Naturally, your move to become more digital will enforce a far more carbon neutral delivery, and the message can really be outlined clearly with your operational effectiveness through this move. And I think setting out these goals at the outset with your stakeholders, it does help in bringing them on board and also really aligning their objectives with your transformation program that you set out.
I know I want to talk about that linkage with the C-suite here in a moment when it comes to digital transformation, ESG. They seem to be different things, but maybe not. Raphael, what's your take on all of this?
Well, I think just to echoing my colleagues here, I think first start with the culture. There's nothing happen if the culture of the company doesn't adopt the ESG and also sustainability. Also, we are talking about a transformation through the technology, but have we considered as well having a team that operates in different regions or geographics, which is also impact the kind of a diverse team is part of having a diverse team and also being sustainable in that and also covering the social aspect of that. So there are certain aspects that when you say that you have teams remote abroad, how do they feel? How do they become part of your transformation journey in that segment in terms of having different members in different geographics? We learned from the impact from the previous pandemic, which is possible, right? But what we are doing to measure that, I think ESG comes very, very along on that line, but I think it comes back to the culture side of the company.
And Christian, what's your take on the aspect of the culture of the organization and its strategies with respect to ESG and digital transformation? How do they come together?
Hi, Kevin. Well, I think this may be the toughest part of putting together ESG and digital transformation. I would say that they may not be naturally linked, but it becomes clear that they actually are. And let me try a little bit to make some sense out of what I've said. For example, probably the most palpable thing around digital transformation would be energy footprint and the hardware that we manage for an organization. And choosing the right hyperscalers or choosing the right data center that has a clear program towards a net zero environmental impact would probably become one of the biggest shifts inside an organizational culture supporting the overall goals of ESG. And I would add another specific to the IT side of a corporation. I would add the power that the IT gets over identifying more efficient processes, business processes. So the goal for the further development of applications and overall IT environment would be to make a business more efficient. And of course, at the end of the day, that will mean a better ESG close up, or a better marriage, right, between ESG and digital transformation. And just a small line at the end. Digital transformation, we all know, it's about transformation more than it is digital. And organizational transformation and business process transformation becomes a clear path towards sustainability.
Well, when it comes to bringing together the culture and the technology and the people and the strategies, it may be something that is forced by the urgency of all of this. The article goes on to talk about the urgency of bringing these things together. And I'll quote again: stakeholders and shareholders alike are growing impatient. Many are no longer waiting, with good reason, as many G8 countries are pressing ahead with legislation mandating evidence-based sustainability programs. Few CEOs will view having an ESG strategy as a nice to have and instead see it as an imperative for 2023. Do you folks all agree with this urgency? And if so, how can digital transformation help?
Yeah,
Yeah, please go.
Now, I was just going to add, Christian pointed out some very important points. I think the biggest area within our organizations where perhaps digital or carbon footprint and emissions are really impacted is in the IT sector. And I think it's fair to say that the push towards a far more digital environment would far more with our tech will become a far more prominent discussion among stakeholders, because when you compare the efficiencies and the carbon footprint savings that you can achieve from having tech running on-prem versus tech running in the cloud, it's quite clear and transparent the savings that you can achieve and especially the emissions that you reduce. And with that in mind, I think it's also becoming quite an important piece with your industry that you work in. In our case, investment managers, our clients are expecting this drive. They want to be far more sustainable in terms of where they invest through us, and we need to demonstrate that through not just our operational efficiencies, but also how we manage and interact with our supply chains as well effectively.
So it's really a brand perception and a customer perception that is important beyond the technology, perhaps. Is that so? Do you feel that that is important brand positioning for your organization?
Absolutely. I think it's a big ask upon us now to demonstrate how efficient we are, and we measure our carbon efficiencies and footprint through various scopes 1, 2, and 3, and how can we demonstrate that to our clients? Because it's a value add. It's effectively an important piece of our interaction with our clients in the current and near future, and the brand perception is quite evident that we have to demonstrate our emissions and operational efficiencies.
Perhaps that's why few CEOs will view having an ESG strategy as only a nice to have anymore. It's because of the impact to the perception of the organization in the market. Raphael, do you feel that that is also true for you and your organization as well?
Yeah, totally. I think having proper environment set for ESG also is a selling a trust. The business or the investors that is dealing with your business can seal a deal, and they have more trust from the perspective of the ESG. So they know that you're covering the 3 parts that should be covering. A part of that as well, I believe that the digital transformation always comes with governance. It's not just kind of a digital transformation and sustainability only. And I think part of that as well on the discussion is important to highlight that we can move forward pretty fast, but also not having the governance on the cybersecurity, for example, that is part of the G, is mandatory. And I think investors are looking very clear to that kind of a scenario from the environment, from the social, and for the governance, right? They don't want to invest in a company that don't have no maturity whatsoever into protect the assets, right? Or the investments they are doing. So I think it's a combination of the three factors that the companies are looking for, but not only the company are looking for, investors are demanding that. So I remember, for example, when investors comes to look on our maturity on the governance side, on the security aspect, I remember there was a Excel. Many kind of auditors send a Excel for us that we should just say yes and everything is fine. Things are changing. Things are kind of a more kind of asking for and show me how, which is actually impact your score on the ESG, which eventually the investor will be might be a little bit concerned to invest or not. So ESG is a game of contracts. So it's kind of the ISO 27001. I agree when we established that if you're hiring a cloud provider that is net zero or trying to be sustainable is better than the ones that is not. So I think it's a conjunction of factor, and technology can help the business as every single department of the business.
And Christian, what's your take on this? It's ESG, so it's environmental, social, and governance. What about the social part of it? That's a bit harder to demonstrate and measure. And I'm still struggling with the connection with digital transformation. What's your thought on that, Christian?
Well, I would get back to the previous idea about hyperscalers and data centers, and we probably all of us in the IT world have seen recently in Norway that they're building data centers that are able to give back the heat towards the community. So they found a way to work together towards a positive social and environmental impact towards the community. This is more physical or something that we can touch from a technology perspective. Something more at the logical level, I would say that I see a more diverse integration from an application standpoint. The type of integration upstream and downstream that would touch on several more topics than the specific business need would only require. So if we are to just tick a box for a specific need from the business, I'm seeing with my customers that we're trying to work on that and see how we can improve the social impact and the environmental impact of such application integrations so that we can tick more boxes, even though they are not specifically related to the business, but they are more ESG related. So I see this trend in the variety of interactions that I'm having. So I would say this is a trend, even though they are not directly connected, and there are no key indicators that a CIO would need to follow towards more social responsibility. I see that happening from these points of view.
All right. Before we move on from the article, I do have one more question for you gentlemen. What's the role of data in all of this? The article stresses how a data-driven approach can help organizations achieve their sustainability goals. It talks about data and access to it is important. The ability to store and measure and report on data will determine your company's ability to achieve environmental and social diversity goals and leave you in the shadow of any scrappy competitor already ahead of you. So what is the relationship between data and good data access on a good ESG plan and ultimately remaining competitive? Christian, your thoughts on that?
Well, yeah, I would just because of these days everybody's talking about ChatGPT, I would try to bring AI into this equation, and I would say that AI is based on data, and I think in the very close future, the majority of the business processes will be AI enabled, and I would see a way for the G8 maybe or OECD countries to be able to touch on how the AI phenomena is developing further and how we can implement ESG objectives into this explosion of utilization of data how we can, I don't know, enhance the machine learning capabilities towards an ESG capable engine, or ESG aware, or improvement of the ESG through the utilization of AI. So, thoughts related to this may become very soon a part of a broader approach towards utilizing data for a better ESG approach.
Well, certainly we seem to be on the cusp of certainly a benchmark in the use and application of AI in many ways, and how it relates to ESG goals will be an important thing to consider moving ahead. Raphael, what's your take on that? How will AI, things like Chat GPT, affect these plans moving forward in 2023 and beyond?
I think before we go into the AI, which is going to be very transformation for everyone. I'm sorry, but I think it's fundamentally. I think the question on the data side, we have to also to be sustainable on that. I ask anyone in the audience if they want to respond or not. But the reason is we only grow in data. We don't delete data. So how sustainable can we be in building more storage? I know that there are certain limitations that we're gonna come across. I know there are new technologies coming forward, but the thing is, the space that we charge as well, or we get challenged in terms of the cloud, is something that we have to look the cost of the operational there. I think on the AI that referring, I think the ethical part that comes on the social part is going to be quite imperative for the AI. So many of the AI things that is coming over definitely is going to kill jobs, which is normal. This is evolution. We shouldn't be panicking. But I think it is important that the company take the step forward to recognize that on the social aspect that is going to be impacting many organizations. So, for example, people that used to kind of reply emails, maybe the chat GPT is going to be doing more and better and more kind of free in order to kind of deliver the message as well. So it's a lot of shift of a workforce that need to be drive and thrive in order to not be scared of AI, but to utilize the AI. But also there is an ethical aspect from the technology perspective of the job conditions that we are kind of removing, right?
Udasa, what's your thought on ethics, data, technology, governance? How do these all need to come together? And do you see it coming together, or do you feel that we'll be challenged in the next years to bring it together in meaningful ways?
I think it's going to be a key part of the wider landscape. As soon as you interact with many different systems, data sets, it's important that we have a measurable oversight of the performance of all of these sustainable metrics. And working with suppliers and our vendors is going to be quite a key part to address areas and really ensure that our emissions are improved. I think there's a lot of interesting technologies that are deriving as we speak, and much of that evolves around the data that Raphael pointed on, and it's going to grow. So it's about ensuring that we collaborate with our suppliers, customers, and stakeholders to find solutions to really create sustainable solutions and really promote sustainable resource use. That's going to be quite a key aspect of this. But continually reviewing and updating our objectives, taking into account of these new technology developments and changing regulations is going to be quite a key aspect, which I think we're all going to be facing the coming months and years ahead.
All right. The article is from the Digital Transformation People. It is called The Link Between ESG and Your Digital Transformation Strategy. You can find it, a link to it in the chat feature there. All right. Well, moving on from our news article today, I want to get into some discussion about how do we do all of this, building sustainability through digital transformation. I guess, gentlemen, my first question is, how do we design and support sustainable business models with digital transformation that drive ESG outcomes? What should be some of the steps that we should be considering today? Mudassar, what is your thought on that?
I would say, I'll say a couple of points. Incorporating sustainable practices into your supply chain management and procurement processes is probably going to be a key aspect of your driving your efficiencies across the business, and with that, it ensures that your supply chains are also meeting your best practices and your strategy that you've outlined. Implementing efficient technologies naturally, which will naturally reduce your carbon emissions through such digital transformations. And an example being, we've gone through a major transformational program over the last 2 to 3 years where we've really heavily pushed towards the cloud, and we're working with our vendors to understand our on-premises estate blueprint efficiencies and emissions versus what the outcome would look should we move into the cloud. Now, many of us probably when we started our journeys 2 to 3 years ago never really thought about sustainability, but by fluke we've actually demonstrated that the move to the cloud can actually produce or currently we have 60% savings compared to our current on-prem infrastructure. And by next year, we'll probably aim to achieve 90% efficiency. So it's working with your vendors, understanding how efficient they are and what their goals are, and also align them with your move. Because I think historically we've never thought about how our carbon footprint would entail post-move.
Anna K is asking, what is the most crucial dimension in analyzing an SBM? I'm not certain, Anna, what you mean by SBM. Maybe you folks can clue me in on that. And how does that influence future performance pathways? Gentlemen, do you have a comment in response to Anna's question? What are the most crucial dimensions that we should analyze with respect to this? And Xavier is saying, I've quoted it before and I'll quote it again. AI is neither artificial nor intelligent. Thank you for that, Xavier, for that. So, all right. How do we do it? So, Raphael, what are the most important aspects that we should consider in building a sustainable model with digital transformation that drives ESG outcomes? What is your suggestion for us in terms of next steps?
Everyone wants a KPI module to be referring to, right? So I think the best thing for us to start, and there is no recipe that fulfills everyone, but perhaps a framework that is available on the internet that you can find certain frameworks on ESG. I think what I will suggest is starting to find out and to map all the process that you currently have, which is a lot of things between these three verticals, the E, the S, the G. And I think if you mention the aspect of covering and mapping according where your employees are working, are they get kind of all the social aspect of conditions that your employees, what you're offering to your employee. So those are the things you have to consider before starting anything. You need to kind of take a holistic view of your business and see fundamentally what you want to do moving forward, right? So I think it's important and imperative for you guys to kind of map data, cloud, as my colleagues are just mentioning now, employees, and then sustainability as well. For example, in my company, we take the little bit step forward and we kind of put sensors around the entire building. So, for example, for us to measure which part of the building is consuming more energy versus the other, or air conditioning, for example. I know that is a step further, but I think we want to kind of, because part of our organization is sustainable, we are kind of a trade sustainability. So I think we have to also to enforce our investors when they come to our house to see that we are taking serious the sustainability piece and kind of applying sensors. I'm not suggesting for everyone to do the same route because it's expensive, but also when the investor wants to see a real life in near real time, the kind of the temperature, if we're becoming sustainable, the answer is yes, we are. Here we go, the dashboards for you.
Anna has helped me understand that she is asking about a sustainable business model. Duh. So the question that Anna is posing to us is, what is the most crucial dimension in analyzing a sustainable business model, and how does this influence future performance pathways? Christian, do you have a thought for that?
Well, it's obviously a very hard question because we're not looking for a universal answer. Each organization is functioning within an ecosystem, and it needs to make sense within that ecosystem. I would try to wrap what my colleagues mentioned in pieces of organizational development, and add that a governance model that would incorporate ESG policies or clearly defined ESG goals would help also when looking at digital transformation projects to craft specific KPIs that would allow us both to reach organizational goals in terms of IT delivery, but also from an ESG perspective. So, having an adapted governance model to an ESG goal of the organization would probably be a very good place to start in order to shift the organizational culture towards an ESG aligned culture. So this would be one aspect, and the other one I see with all the organization lately that a highly efficient business function is always a winning card when trying to identify any types of transformations within organizations. So I would align, and I've had a glimpse of, I think Rafael mentioned, um, I would align an efficient business model with also better ESG implications because at the end of the day, we would be able to drive more profit from a more efficient and a more streamlined business process, which does not consume as much as it does a regular business process. So we would be able to touch on ESG aspects from this perspective as well.
What about organizations that are starting from scratch? Xavier is asking for immature organizations that don't have an existing sustainable business model in place. What elements should they consider when modeling from scratch? I'm a very much how do I do it kind of guy. Raphael, what's your take on the elements that we should be including if we're working from ground up?
Well, I think first, part of all the digital transformation is important imperative that we move towards the governance. And as I think Christian mentioned, the process is part of the governance, right? So business cannot function without the right process. So I think first step is understanding my technology aspect, my technology environment, where I am, what do I need to cover, what my governance around that, and also key members that is part of this social environment that you have to keep in mind. But I think for me, the governance is a big aspect as part as well the environment and the social. But I think without governance, you are kind of in a big risk for the organizations to fail on the process. That's my takeover on that.
But Asar, your thoughts on that? Elements that we should consider in building our sustainable business model plans?
Sure. I think the first thing is implementing some key policy and standards for your existing supply chain and focus on areas such as waste reduction, energy efficiencies, and technology practices that you leverage. Then I guess applying some form of monitoring and measuring tools against your suppliers or technologies, so you can build a landscape of your sustainable metrics, and then working with your suppliers or your tech vendors to really address those areas for improvement. I think once you've done that, it's then collaborating with your vendors and internal your customers or effectively your stakeholders to find solutions to then essentially create a far more objective view in terms of driving your sustainable and reducing your challenges that you've obviously outlined. And that is by reducing the carbon emissions or promoting effectively your sustainable resources internally. But then I suppose it's how that the whole governance piece to Raphael's point is how do you manage that piece going forward, and how often do you keep that engagement internally? That's the key part of this. But having the metrics gathered is one part, but it's then how do you effectively reduce those metrics to numbers that are in line with your business objectives that you set out and wish to deliver upon.
Rebecca asks, great points, Mudasa. Question for you. Where does digital transformation fit with sustainable supply chain and ESG? Great question. That's really my overall question today. Where does digital transformation fit in all of this?
I think given the nature of environments and the technologies that we're using far more now, I think it's part of your ecosystem. I think your supply chain is very much a key part of your digital transformation and also your sustainable goals. You need to really work closely with your partners to demonstrate that they are achieving goals in line with your business objectives. Now, I think some organizations that you work with may not have a set measurable goal that you can align with at this stage, but it's having that roadmap that you can deliver upon, and some of those specific metrics that they produce for you, how measurable are they against some of your systems that you run internally, and then effectively monitoring those until hopefully your emissions are reduced. I do think that the discussion around our supply chains is very important, because ultimately there are some aspects that are in your control and some aspects that are out of your control. So it's making sure that you understand their business model and align it with your objectives.
Key is measuring, and those metrics that you're talking about, Udasa, measuring and then communicating those measures in a way that impact not only the organization and the culture of the organization, but how it's perceived, and then just simply demonstrating your efforts on these in these areas. Raphael, what are some key measures that we should include in our plans?
Well, I think someone
And how
said
do we measure
something.
them?
Yeah, yeah, no, totally. I think it said about the cloud. So just thinking for a moment, many companies start this journey to move to the cloud since the COVID came along. But if COVID didn't come along, probably we'll be on the kind of a very slow motion moving towards the cloud, which is significant, is quite impactful for the sustainability piece, because as much business goes to cloud, better and more efficient we become on the sustainability piece. But saying that, there is a plenty of business that still operate on prem, right? So if we just kind of creating a condition where we bring those business forward into use the cloud, and avoiding us to move to kind of a continuum prem. I know that is difficult. It's not applicable for every single business. For example, there are business like banks that they prefer to have the private cloud, complete understand, but there are other banks as well taking the step forward and become more sustainable. I think saying that, I think there's a huge space for us to improve on that aspect of become more sustainable for the entire kind of earth. But I think it depends off as well of many business, not just one company doing one form and the others not taking consideration on the sustainability piece.
And Christian, what should we be measuring, and how do we demonstrate that and communicate that effectively?
Well, again, it's hard to have a universal answer. Obviously, it's the same questions that we're already thinking of. How is our energy consumption posture looking, I don't know, beyond the next 5 years? How can we effectively downsize our equipment so we can fulfill the business goals, but utilizing less or consume less, right? And I was just recently going over with some numbers for a hyperscaler, and we've identified that just moving equipment into the cloud would actually be cheaper than the energy bill on its own. Not to
Mm.
mention the cost of the infrastructure would be just a bonus added to the overall movement. Of course, you would have then application migration and other involved costs, but overall, when talking about specific goals that you can attain, this would be a way to make your company deliver better, faster, and with less, right? So this would be one of the goals. Then um, I don't know, outside of energy, maybe trying to drive your business towards a net zero goal and having renewable energy for running the operations, and alternative methods, to from a technology perspective that would be in the hands of the IT department to be able to fulfill goals that are related to the business, not to the IT side of the operation. So injecting as much as possible new technologies and new thinking and innovative products inside the business processes so that at the end of the day the business is more successful based on the technology that we're able to provide and that we're able to empower the leaders with.
All right. Well, I want to thank the folks that have been participating in the chat and the Q&A feature. Things have been going by here. One last question from Xavier, and thank you so much for your participation today. Speaking of measuring, how do you best leverage new talent, stronger cultures, and new ways of working to further reinforce your digital transformation plan? Anyone have a thought for Xavier on that?
Okay, I can start on that if it's okay. I think it's a very interesting question. As I think I said, um, first, it's hard to attract talents at the moment, right? That's the first thing. So it's hard to attract talents to the current situation, I believe, because most of the talents and maybe the different generations, they have certain aspects of needs that most of the companies are not willing to bend over into the conditions they are offering. But I think as once again, taking a parallel to the AI, we should use that as an opportunity and not as a challenge. So I think it's a combination of factors. What I'm trying to say is the new generation that is coming forward, they probably don't want to do the work that we used to do before, and they're going to probably find in another way to do better what we used to do. And how do we attract those talents, keep those talents, including different geographics, as I mentioned, is going to be a challenge for every single organization. For example, in UK, we have a big gap in the tech space for talents. I'm kind of getting talents across the whole world. So for me, a guy that has the talent or a girl that has the talent in the moon with the internet and computer delivering what with the business needs, I think we are fine. Of course, we have to provide all the environment and social conditions for that worker to be able to do. But I think it is a measure the company and the culture has to take forward in order to make sure that this happens.
All right. Very good. Well, unfortunately, we are running short of time. Before we go, gentlemen, I would like to ask each of you to take just 60 seconds, 1 minute each, and please provide us with one quick action item that we can use to take advantage of your ideas and advice today. Mudasar, what's your action item for us today?
I would say setting specific, measurable, and time-bound sustainable goals for your digital transformation program is going to be quite key to the success of this program for yourself, and include obviously reducing your carbon emissions and improving energy efficiencies as part of that overall goal. Looking at your supply chains that you work with, whether that's a vendor that holds cloud services for your business, or even to your vendors that where you procure through, working with them very closely and understanding how they are driving ESG within their businesses, because I think effectively that will then resonate within your business model and help in delivering your goals.
And Raphael, what's one quick action item we can use today?
Yeah, I think first mapping and data governance for sure in process. I think for me, I'm more keen on the G. Not that I'm not considering the E and the S, but I think for me, the biggest challenge for most organizations is the G.
All right, very good. And Christian, just 1 minute left. What's your action item for us today, sir?
Well, of course, I totally agree with my colleagues. Both ideas are definitely part of the strategy. I need to add just one extra component, which would be the culture and identifying ways for a company to be meaningful to the environment in terms of a social presence and in terms of generating value for the community that it's sitting amongst.
All right, very good. Well, I want to thank our panel today, Raphael Narazi, Chief Technology Officer at CF Partners, Mudasar Ulhag, Chief Information Officer at Waverton Investment Management Limited, and Christian Kuku, an internationally known advisor on IT and cybersecurity. Gentlemen, thank you so much for being with us. Your perspectives and advice were spot on. Thank you so much. I hope we get a chance to talk again soon. And to everyone joining us, thank you. Join us again next week at 1600 GMT when we will talk with another great panel of experts about the new age of improved customer experience. That should be a great discussion. And if you'd like to find me, you can do so on LinkedIn. I'm happy to connect there, and check out my weekly podcast, the Digital Transformation Podcast. All right, with that, that'll do it for this episode of Digital Transformation Talk. Until next week, I'm Kevin Crane. Thank you for watching.